This is the Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. Episode 83, recorded November 17, 2016. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. I am your host, Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is our keeper of comics here at TV Enthusiast, Will.
Hello.
So today we're going to be talking about Scream Queens, Westworld, and Black Mirror. We might be cutting off our discussion of DC shows, just having to, deal with the apps and not really working that well for Will here, so... Honestly, I think most of our discussion over the last couple of weeks has been about disappointment.
These are, at the end of the day, these are average shows. I'm kind of I'm feeling a bit of superhero fatigue as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, I think a lot of people have expressed this. And not just with CW shows, but with, the movies. There's just a lot out there, and it's superhero fatigue. These shows, generally from week to week, actually half the time aren't interesting enough to even discuss on this podcast.
Well, it's like I had asked if you'd seen last week's Legends of Tomorrow, and you said, what happened in last week's episode?
Right, I can't remember.
And I said, I just did my show notes for it today, and I still didn't remember.
I couldn't
I just literally wrote up the whole thing about the episode and couldn't remember. That shows you how, uninterested I was.
Yeah, it's just these are mediocre shows. I think they to discuss them takes up a huge block of time, and then I've noticed the past few. I've noticed that the past few we actually have to rush through the rest. Like when we get around to Westworld, we actually have to rush through that discussion. When in any given episode of Westworld, there's so much going. There's layers to peel back and to dissect and analyze, and to sit there and go, well, it's almost 2 a.m. We need to get through this. After we talked about the most banal episode of Arrow for 15 minutes, I don't think it does justice to this podcast, really.
There are better things to discuss.
Yeah, I think this podcast works better when we can dive deep on the stuff that's actually interesting. So hopefully we got pared down now to 3 shows instead of half a dozen. So hopefully focusing on these 3 shows will let us get some good discussion and examination on these shows, versus having to talk about each show for 5 minutes before rapidly moving on to the next, because we had this whole block of superhero shows taking up our time.
Yeah, I know what you mean about superhero fatigue. I still like all the Marvel stuff, but I'm not even I didn't see Suicide Squad. I don't feel like I've missed anything by not seeing it. And I have no interest in watching Justice League or Wonder Woman or anything. I'm just the DC side of it, I'm just I'm over it. Marvel still makes each movie kind of interesting, and
I'm interested in Wonder Woman because,
that looks the best of them, but even that I could still watch that when it's on TV or something.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's not must
I don't feel any need to go out to the theater to watch it, yeah. Like I did with Doctor Strange, or I will with Guardians 2 and stuff, where I'm genuinely excited to watch those. And with the DC stuff, I'm just not. I think the Batman v Superman was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was that was it. I was just okay, I can't get excited about this anymore. So that's fine. We're the DC TV stuff had always been better. I think that they kind of bit off more than they could chew with the 4 shows they're running right now. And it's starting to get to where at one point we were talking about how the CW was the new home for all this great genre TV. Now we're talking about how all these Arrowverse shows have this CW effect going on in them with relationships and stuff that are just annoying the shit out of us. It's just not good.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all. It's not healthy. So I guess it's fair to say I'm kind of burnt out on DC in particular.
Yeah.
But less so Marvel, but it's because Marvel keeps a pretty consistent high bar for quality, that the DC stuff does not maintain as well.
Definitely. So speaking of Marvel, we're going to talk, of course, we're not going to be talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or any of the Netflix shows because none of them are on. But there is one notable thing to talk about, and that is that just this last week, they announced that Inhumans is going to be a TV show.
Yeah, we're going to be discussing Kevin Feige's rejects. Kevin Feige's, oh, thank God, I never want to make this a movie anyway. Get this away from me.
But this is went from being a movie that was slated for 2019 originally. It was like somewhere way in in phase 4 somewhere, I guess. I don't know. And it's out of there now, and now it's going to be a TV show next year. But they're going to release the first 2 episodes on IMAX.
Yeah, which is pretty cool, but I can't help but think that's because the first 2 episodes are basically this movie that was in development. And then I don't know. I don't know what this is. See, what's weird about this is that this announcement was just dumped upon us unceremoniously without comment from anybody at Marvel.
Which isn't a good sign, except for the fact that the IMAX thing was attached to it.
Yeah, the IMAX thing, but that seems like kind of, I don't know. That seems like a marketing thing more than anything.
They're shooting on IMAX, which is expensive. So
it's expensive, but they're only doing this for the first 2 episodes. They probably already planned to do this with this film anyway when it was a film. So I feel like this whole IMAX thing is probably just left over from when this was going to be a movie anyway.
I don't know. We can't tell yet. There's too many variables in place. Right now, the first thing we're going to think is like, oh, TV budget, things like that.
Well, it's ABC.
It's
more than just like, oh, TV. Like if it's HBO, well, yeah, like HBO has shown an incredible capacity to spend what they need to spend to make these fantastic worlds, these fantastic realms come. You look at Westworld, you look at Game of Thrones, you know that these shows, these worlds need huge, fantastic budgets to come to life in the way that they do to be engaging. And you know that HBO is willing to spend that money to make this content. And you think about what you think. Well, no, you can't have Westworld on ABC unless it looks like Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. There's no way that's happening.
But then again, ABC was home to Lost, which in my opinion is the most engaging TV show of all time.
I get you. For completely different reasons than they spent like a bunch of money on island. I mean, they filmed it in Hawaii, which I don't know like what tax breaks they got for that or whatever. Like I said, Lost conceptual, like concept works into it too. Like Lost as a concept did not need some giant extreme budget to work. It was people stranded on an island. Weird shit happens. We don't need to spend a lot of money on that concept. But this is like, first of all, they live in this world, Adelan, which is like, I'm not too familiar. I can't describe it because I'm not at all familiar with the Inhuman comic books.
It's got kind of this separated like fantasy kind of element to it.
They're like in a fantasy land, they're not like in New York. So you can't save money just shooting people running around in New York.
That doesn't necessarily. Well, I mean, actually, filming in New York is super expensive, but it's no, seriously, it is.
I know.
Getting around stuff, yeah. Before you even get into the actual.
Okay, so you can't save money by filming people running around Toronto. Okay.
Yeah. Toronto doubling for New York. Yeah.
Doubling for New York. Yeah.
I agree with you there, but on the other hand, there have been a lot of shows on small budgets on TV recently that have gone for these kind of like, like non-city areas, kind of fantasy or otherwise, that have
you
done
look at Once
really
Upon a
good
Time.
jobs. Well, Once Upon a Time's a bad example, but I mean, that kind of stuff looks pretty cheesy, but like, I'll take Once Upon a Time and I'll raise you the 100, or which does a really good job of its setting. And then, from there I could say, I don't know, Spartacus,
right.
what it did by kind of just...
Spartacus was also on Stars. I'm not real familiar.
It was small budget.
Yeah, okay, I'm not really familiar with that. But I mean... no, you're right, you got a point in that. It's about the execution. So,
and on the effects side, look at something like Supernatural, and like how Supernatural's been able to... but like they've been able to make like demons.
Budget has been like shrinking and shrinking and shrinking to the point where half the monsters are basically just humans, except like there's something freaky about them.
But that's kind of what the Inhumans are like, right? So
that is kind of like
it can be done. It can be done. It's just
except for like the main cast of Inhumans we're talking about. Like you definitely need some decent special effects going like all the time. Like Medusa, she has like snake. She's got full snake hair thing going on. 100 all the time, nonstop.
She'll wear a scarf.
yeah.
There are ways to minimize the budget and do it. I mean, one of my favorite filmmakers is Robert Rodriguez, who did like Desperado and Spy Kids. But he also did what's it called? From Dusk Till Dawn and Desperado and these movies and stuff. He made his first movie for $7,000.
Right.
And it looks like it's way more than $7,000, and it's all execution.
It's all execution. You gotta find somebody to execute. Unfortunately, in television, doing this from week to week, you're not likely to get a Robert Rodriguez. That's like extremely rare.
Hey, Robert Rodriguez would have jumped at a job like that when he was first starting out.
Oh, he probably would have.
So you just got to get the Robert Rodriguez that isn't Robert Rodriguez yet.
Yeah.
Which we have a lot more of those now with the proliferation of information because of the internet and film schools, and so I don't know. I think I'm a lot more hopeful than you are about this. I think it can be done. It's all vision.
It just feels like Marvel, like this is supposed to be one of their crown jewels, and they looked at it and they kind of said, "Nah, make this a show." This doesn't work out as a movie for some reason.
I just don't think they wanted to. There's two sides. One is that it's an ensemble, so that's always harder with movies.
Also, it kind of like intensifies the ever increasing disconnect between Marvel TV and Marvel film. Whereas where now it seems like, or I guess it's always been that it seems like the TV shows sit there and they posture and they pretend they're in the same universe as the films, while films never reference them, and like what's happening in the films might, as far as films concerned, those TV shows might not really exist at all, because there's no mutual connection. There's just like the TV show will, like, you'll watch a Marvel TV show and they'll reference something that happened in the films, and to be like, yeah, we're in that universe, but you won't see anybody in the movies reference anything that happens in any of these shows. And
they use excuses with schedules and stuff, but there are things they could easily
things they could use for that. And it's and where I'm going with this is the most glaring, the most in your face example of this is Inhumans. Okay, because for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the big thing has been all these Inhumans running around. You think anybody in Civil War once mentioned Inhumans when they were like saying they're all concerned about superpowered people, and coming up with the Sokovia Accords in Civil War, that being the main concern. You think somebody would have said, and all these Inhumans, we got to do something about this. No, nobody, that word was not mentioned once in that film. Not once. But they're running around all over the place in the Marvel Universe, supposedly.
Yeah.
So
there's like a tricky imbalance there.
And it's just gonna intensify. Now we have an Inhumans TV series, and
Inhumans is a little different though, because the actual series
exist? Yeah, they don't exist.
The actual Inhumans series versus the scattered Inhumans that are in S.H.I.E.L.D., they're like segregated. They're like off in their own kind of society, They're kind of like in like a magical realm practically. So like you don't necessarily need a crossover for them. And I think that's part of why, Feige wasn't really interested in humans for the movie universes. There's a few reasons. One is it's an ensemble cast, which is really hard to do in movies. I mean, you look at Avengers and of course or Civil War, and it has a huge ensemble cast, but they developed it all.
Here's the thing: you can make these same arguments about Guardians of the Galaxy. You could say it's an ensemble cast. They're segregated from the rest of the Marvel universe.
But there are only like 4 or 5 characters, and there are like Guardians 2 is going to directly connect. Like they actually
Guardians
go to Earth.
2 is going to directly connect, but originally, they're segregated. They're out in space, some far away.
I get that, but then also even the first one was directly like Thanos was a major character in the first Guardians.
Well, but Thanos is a cosmic character that makes sense for that franchise. Thanos is barely connected to anything happening in the rest of the Marvel films, except he's coming to Earth at some point.
I think interweaving the Inhumans into like I guess you could call it the MCU proper, like the film side of the MCU, is just like a nightmare for Feige, because it's like a huge number of characters. It's this whole other society. It's this whole other thing.
Here's what's really going on, and people have been saying this has been political since the beginning, and the speculation is Inhumans was like Perlmutter's idea, because Marvel didn't have X-Men, and so in Marvel Comics, the closest analog to X-Men Marvel has is Inhumans. So Ike Perlmutter pushed this concept for Marvel to have its own X-Men franchise. I don't think Kevin Feige was ever on board with this. And now that Feige controls Marvel films and not the TV side, I think he just kind of handed it off to the TV side because it's not something he was interested in.
That's kind of why I'm glad that it's not being a movie, by the way, is because it was something that that Kevin Feige, he didn't want to make it into the movies, And so, and like ensemble shows work better as TV shows than they do as movies. They just do, because you can spend more time with the characters and stuff. The fact that it takes place kind of in a different world means it doesn't have to connect as much as like even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does, or like, the Netflix Marvel shows do. It can kind of be its own thing, which is another good thing about its position. I mean, it could be pretty much completely separate and yet still take place in the same world. Like they could make not a single reference at all either direction, from either from the Inhuman side or from the MCU side. They could make it so that they never reference each other once and still have them take place in the same world, because like that's just kind of the weird separation that the Inhumans has even in the comics a bit, where like they can cross them if they want to, but they don't have to.
Inhumans was never a big franchise for Marvel traditionally. It's just in recent years that Marvel has been aggressively pushing them because
mostly because of X-Men being
X-Men being owned by Fox, and in a lot of ways it feels forced, because readers weren't necessarily interested in this property to begin with when Marvel wasn't like aggressively trying to be like, look, forget about X-Men.
These are all reasons why I'm excited about it as a TV show, though, because I don't really know that much about it. I have like a very limited understanding of it, and so it makes it all kind of like new to me. It doesn't have the same kind of baggage that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does. Like I get where you're coming from with the disparity between TV and the movies with like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., for example, where like they don't reference Inhuman stuff. Like it still kind of bothers me that like, you know, Coulson's been running around for like 4 years now back to life and none of the Avengers know he's alive.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And he worked with them.
Well, and he worked with them. Well, yeah.
That was like a catalyst for them to bond. and he's been just kicking for 4 years and they don't know.
Joss Whedon did an interview when he was doing Age of Ultron. And we know Joss Whedon has input on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We know his brother Jeb Whedon is a producer on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
He's a showrunner, yeah. His brother and his brother's wife.
Yeah, our showrunner. So you know Joss Whedon is fully aware of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. what goes on there. But when Joss Whedon was working on Age of Ultron, he did an interview where he kind of sort of said, as far as Age of Ultron goes, it's sort of not in continuity with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because yes, Coulson is alive, but we don't want to reference that in the movie. We don't want the Avengers to know that.
Yeah.
Because
that's like that's a point of frustration when you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Where I don't think you have the same baggage with Inhumans as a show.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, so like he was like very oddly, you know, adamantly like no, Coulson should not be mentioned in these movies at all. I don't care about stuff. I mean, it was kind of weird. I didn't like quite.
I don't understand why they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big part of that is that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s viewership is pretty low.
Yeah, he was like,
movies have huge viewership, so like it kind of makes it feel like the people that just watch the movies don't.
Joss Whedon kind of framed it like yeah, these are the same continuity. Yes, Coulson is alive, but for the purposes of my movie, Coulson isn't alive.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think that's largely, like I said, it's largely because there are a lot of people that watch all of the movies and don't watch any of the show, or like they don't watch the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the very least, you know. So it's like you can't have this like very integral like contribution that Coulson makes through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and have that be a huge part of like Age of Ultron or any of the other MCU movies, because there's so many people that are going to be like, what? I don't understand what's going on. I thought he was dead. Like they don't get it. They don't know that because they don't watch the show. So that's part of the conflict. There's other ways they could address it in like kind of lighter, teasier ways, you know, that they don't, unfortunately, you know, like they could do things like in the movies, like for instance, like mention Matt Murdock or something. They don't even have to mention Daredevil or his activities, but they could just like in some passing with a thing, they could talk about a lawyer named Matt Murdock or something, you know? That's like all they have to do. They don't even have to have him show up. They just say his name.
Have Tony Stark mention he hired Matt Murdock as part of his legal defense team, you know, or something. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like you could do something so small like that, so offhand that people that don't watch the show they're not missing anything. They just kind of go like, oh, it's just some person he named.
Right.
It doesn't do anything for them.
Acknowledgement that this connection runs both ways now, because it's really pathetic. It comes across as pathetic now when you see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they reference something that happens in the films, and then you go watch films and films like, lol, that doesn't exist.
It's at least it's not as bad as what happens on the DC side, where they basically just flat out said, yeah, we're doing Barry Allen too.
Well, no,
not only are we doing Barry Allen too, but you're not allowed to do these characters anymore that you were already doing.
Oh, God. I don't think they're doing that anymore.
That's probably Jeff Johns.
I think that's Jeff Johns and Valencia. They're clearly not doing that anymore, because like Superman actually appeared on Supergirl, which was I think something even a year ago was just
and they
not
also
going to happen.
referenced Gotham, the city of Gotham on Supergirl, and they've been showing some of the, you know, like they've been having like little bits, not full on, but little bits with like Deadshot and stuff again, you know, to kind of show like, oh yeah, he did exist, you know. We didn't just wipe him from history. They didn't flashpoint him out of history, which they could have done. like because of Flashpoint, Deadshot like died as a baby, and you know the guy, nothing happened from there on. But it is a point of frustration. I think in some ways it almost comes off like it's that film TV arrogance, like the idea of like TV is lesser than film, you know, and like having that arrogance is what makes it true. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy because, you know, nobody feels like, oh, you know, this is limited because it's TV when they watch Game of Thrones, you know, like you don't feel that way, you know, and it's not just because of budget. I mean, budget plays a part because it's a huge scope show, but I mean, the same could be said for something like Mad Men, which doesn't have dragons and stuff, you know, that like nobody like looks at movies that were similar and goes, oh yeah, well, you know, Mad Men's good for TV or so, you know, like nobody did that, or Deadwood, you know, nobody's like, oh, for a TV Western, it's okay, you know, like that was never the case. So I just wish they'd get over that and just, but to the topic of Inhumans, like I think that's one of the things that's cool about Inhumans, about from everything I've heard about it. Again, like I haven't read any of the comics for Inhumans, but from everything I've heard about it, it's separate enough that it doesn't have to have that baggage, which is cool. I like that.
We'll see what happens. The choice of network does not have me excited. I got to admit, nothing on ABC as so far, even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has come close to Daredevil or, you know, like the Netflix stuff, Marvel stuff is so far ahead. It just with the, you got me with the hook. You were like X-Men, Game of Thrones. And I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, if this was on Netflix, I'd be like, shit, they're gonna nail this landing. But it's like ABC. I just don't know. I don't know. I hope it's good. I pray it's good.
I really hope it's good too. I think I have stronger hopes than you do, and a higher likelihood that I'll be disappointed than you do. But I think there's a lot of interesting.
It's just the nature of like it being a traditional network, and the nature of a network like ABC, which is to play it as safe as possible with what you have. Even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I enjoy. I enjoy Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. plays it relatively safe. You know,
all that stuff changes too, which is what's interesting because network heads change, priorities at these networks change. Like a perfect example of this is there's another Marvel show which is coming to Freeform, which I think you immediately wrote off.
In that, yeah.
But here's what's interesting about it. It was delayed to 2018, is getting massive rewrites, and they just announced that the showrunner for the series now, who is the one doing all these rewrites and the reason why it was delayed, was one of the writers on Daredevil.
Really?
So all of a sudden that goes from being like, oh, this has no chance of being interesting to like, this just popped up on my radar. You know,
I thought it was being developed by like some guy or something who like typically does teen dramas.
And it's all been rewritten. Like it's they didn't like what was happening, and now they have now they brought on a Daredevil writer, and they're doing some interesting stuff. So it's like all of a sudden this goes from being nothing to being possibly something. So it's that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like it's always changing. I think ABC right now, when I look at what the shows on ABC, I just think of like it's Shonda. That's all it is. ABC is just the Shonda channel.
It's
the
Shonda Rhimes channel, with like some Marvel stuff.
But 10 years ago, it was the channel that brought us Lost.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and there were a few other kind of high concept shows around then.
Continually feels like an accident because like you watch their desperate, straining attempts to recreate Lost.
Everyone's attempts to recreate Lost, all the networks.
And after Lost ended, like ABC is, I remember like Fast Forward. Oh my god. Which But they
were the only ones, remember?
Which tried so hard.
Event.
Fast Forward on ABC actually tried so hard to be Lost that they actually tried to put in Lost references in the show to pretend it was in the same universe. And it's like, no.
It wasn't just ABC though, because it was, NBC NBC, CBS, all the channels were trying to rip off Lost.
Oh yeah.
And all of them failed equally
no
bad.
avail, because like nobody got what made Lost, you know? And it wasn't just because weird shit is happening and mysteries. It really wasn't that. Like, mysteries mean nothing if you don't care about the people or what's going on. You know, like if I didn't give a shit about Jack or Kate or, you know, or Charlie or Desmond or Locke, you know, I mean, you're hearing these names and you know exactly who I'm talking about. Everybody listening to this can picture in their mind's eye. When I say Locke, you instantly know who in your mind's eye that is. If
I can't think of a single character's name from Flash Forward.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I can't even think of a guy's name, and even if I did miraculously remember somebody's name, I couldn't put a face to it.
Smithy, let's just make up a name. Ramirez.
That's how bad that is. So it doesn't matter that shit was happening, and like that crazy premise of that show, which was actually a pretty interesting premise, but that premise wasn't worth a shit because the characters weren't worth a shit. Nobody could connect or care about the characters. I think that's what made Lost. That was the heart of Lost.
Well, also they didn't shove the premise down our throat. Like, it was, they crash landed on an island. All the mystery stuff, like, it doled out slowly.
It happened gradually. Exactly. Yeah. Like it wasn't immediately clear that this was Mystery Island when they crashed. Up front, you're sold a show about castaways stranded on an island. That's what you're sold. That's the log line that comes with the show when you first start watching. You're not expecting weird shit going into Lost. You're not. I mean, probably now because people know what the show's like. But when the show was brand new, going into watching the first episode, you weren't expecting a smoke monster. You were expecting Jack's dad's ghost to be wandering around the island. You were not that.
The guy repeatedly relived in the 70s.
Yeah.
Time travel.
All that stuff was stuff that was not part of the package when you signed up. Okay, you were like, this is a survival story about people on an island. Let's check it out, see how good it is. And you know that premise is going to live and die on the strength of its characters.
And what they nailed, I think, too, is that when they would introduce something that was weird, they introduced it in a way that was so vague that it was like the characters basically going like, wow, that was weird, and then trying to kind of like, it goes to a point like where you could explain it away. You could say, oh, that was weird, but it could be like this. And then it progressively started getting weirder to the point where it's like, okay, you can't explain this anymore. It
was done in a way that kind of promoted discussion and theories.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, it got people talking at the end of the episode, you know, because it wasn't like obvious. It wasn't like, boo, a ghost, and this island's haunted, so there's no mystery to it, you know. It was like, wait, what was that about? Like, when it happens, like when you see Jack's dad on the island, you know, you're not thinking haunted island, you're thinking, wait, what was that? What was that about? Wait, what's going on? And now, and you're starting to formulate ideas and theories in your head, and you don't know for sure. So the first thing you did after Lost went off is you want to go out and you want to tell people your theories about what just happened, or to hear other people's ideas about what just happened. I think a lot of that propagated Lost's success too, because it was the type of show after you finished it, you just wanted to talk about it because you couldn't fully process what you just watched. So you need other people to help you process it.
I think that's also why the fact that Lost came on network, and even though it really is like a once in a lifetime, like you said, like an accident. Like, it's like, this is like the kind of show, and the story of how Lost got approved was basically that the guy that approved the show knew he was losing his job. And basically like said, well, fuck you, I'm going to greenlight all the shows I want to. And that's how Lost came about. You know, it's like,
and he didn't have the grand idea behind Lost was, I want a show about people stranded on an island. That's what he said. That was the mandate. Nobody came up. And then he just
got the right people.
Nobody came up with the concept of, okay, this is going to be this island, but spooky shit is going to happen. Nobody said that.
That was all brought on by the people that they attached to it.
Exactly.
But but that's why I'm still hopeful that, like, I think as networks get worse and worse, you also get closer and closer to the likelihood of somebody lashing out and doing something that's just kind of weird and out there and different than everything else, you can get that kind of stuff, because before Lost hit, that's kind of what was happening on network TV too, is that it was, like, I think, was it Angel? I think it just ended before Lost started.
Yeah. I mean, there was some good
and like procedurals were piling up again, and then Lost came.
I hope that as far as network TV is concerned, we're due for another Lost, because network television has increasingly become more and more safe the past couple of years, to a ludicrous degree where now it's almost a parody of itself. I mean, did you read the synopsis for Oliver Twist?
Yeah.
Oliver freaking Twist, about a sexy female detective. What?
Who is her will they won't they chemistry with?
I forget. I don't know, my brain shut down after that. I was like, yep.
You're gonna get that. That's what happens, and then something like Lost just pops up out of nowhere. And that's the kind of thing, that's where I keep hope alive. So I still have hope that Inhumans can be great. I don't think it's gonna be the next Lost.
I don't
just say that right up front. I don't think it's going to be next Lost, but I think it could be a really good show. And I think that a lot of the things that would make me like hesitant to think that it would be one of the more interesting Marvel movies is exactly what makes me more excited about it as a TV show. Like the large ensemble cast that, like, if it was a movie, they wouldn't be able to get to develop all those characters properly. Things like that. As a TV show makes sense. The fact that, it doesn't link, like, it as directly as like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did. Like, even though I want the stuff to link up more, the fact that it doesn't link means it has less baggage about linking with things. So that just makes it be able to stand more on its own, which I kind of like as well. Not that I want the things to stand on their own, but it's not going to suffer from the fact that the movies aren't, how do I say it? I lost the word. That the movies aren't reciprocating the connections that the TV shows are to the movies. So it suffers less from that because it's less connected. So that's just how I feel about it. We need to move on, though. We need to talk about Westworld. No, not Westworld. Scream Queens. Scream Queens and Westworld and Black Mirror. So Scream Queens has been off for a few weeks. It's back now. It picks up directly where the events of the last episode left off, with the Halloween massacre, with Hester on the loose. I think we can go through this pretty quickly, because event-wise, there's not a lot to talk about.
It's
a fun episode.
It's a fun episode. There's a lot of jokes. We get introduced to Tristan, who was obsessed with the Chanels to the point of lesbian fan fiction of them, and also like getting Chanel's phone number from her lawyer and basically stalking them.
Yeah.
But the crux of the episode, like the main plot point of the episode, is the Chanels. The Chanels need to recruit new Chanels
to act as human shields.
to act as human shields, so that the killer doesn't go directly for them. He goes, like she says, the logic is, we just need to surround ourselves with less attractive, less important people that the killer will kill off before they go after us.
It's hilarious. I love just the things with all the girl who has no expression on her face.
The girl who can't move her face.
And the girl with 6 fingers.
Yeah.
And the green meanie like cuts off one of her fingers.
One of her fingers. She's like, "Oh my god, I love you. Thank you." The green meanie just offs her. What do you think of this big revelation the one doctor there, Taylor Lautner, is the child, or supposedly is the child.
Yeah, that it's interesting. I think the fact that they revealed it in that way is hinting that he's not the killer, which is what's interesting to me. It's basically saying like, okay, well, if it's this, then it's unlikely that he's actually the killer, and so that cuts away like a big chunk of the mystery on that. Which, of course, the mystery is secondary to the humor in the show.
The mystery it's secondary to the humor. Like when they did the big reveal last season, it did actually end up making much sense.
But it didn't matter because it was funny.
But it didn't matter, because it was funny. So they could go for something goofy again this season.
I like the doubt that they threw on Chamberlain, the candy striper.
Yeah,
and then you find out that he doesn't actually work there. He just
he just shows up and does that. Like Dean Munch is like okay, like first of all, I wouldn't put an ad on Craigslist. Second of all, what hospital has a candy striper these days?
That's really funny. And poor Chanel number 5 still being treated like hot garbage constantly. I love them all crowding around Denise Hempfield or whatever and being all like, oh God, she's dead. And then they're like, Chanel number 5's there with like a machete in her back. Like,
yeah, she's like, God, Chanel number 5. Denise just died. Can't we have 2 minutes without it not being about you?
It's just hilarious. I just found out, did you know that's Abigail Breslin, the little girl from Little Miss Sunshine?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that until like just when I was doing the show notes and I saw it. I was like, oh shit.
Oh shit. No, I've known this whole time.
But yeah, okay. I don't think there's much else to say. It was just continues to be funny. Glad it's back on.
Yeah, glad it's back. Continues to be entertaining. Not much else to say about it, really.
Let's move on to Westworld, because this is where we're going to have some stuff to talk about.
This is a big reveal happened. Can't say I didn't see it coming. A lot of people predicted this like a long time ago.
It was one of the more popular theories.
It's one of the more popular.
Not the biggest theory, but one of the biggest.
One of the biggest, more popular, for the fact that it seemed pretty obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you look at it, because it seemed obvious, but yeah, this was a freaking fantastic episode.
Yeah. I loved the scene where Theresa was working with got her name here, hold on. Charlotte, rep from the board, to basically screw over Bernard. And as they're playing this whole thing out, when you see Dr. Ford's face.
Oh my god, it's funny because Charlotte's like, well, we need a blood sacrifice to make this work. She's talking about Bernard. They're trying, the plan is to screw over Bernard for their joke is so much on them, though. Holy shit.
And the whole time they're playing out their little act, though, and it keeps cutting to Dr. Ford's face.
Oh my god, he has like this, he's just expressionless,
Yeah.
Like in the most creepy, eerie way. He's just completely expressionless the whole time, and he doesn't say a word.
He knows from point one what's happening. Nothing's catching him off guard. He's completely unplussed by the whole situation.
Oh yeah, he's completely unplussed by this show. It's not
hurting his plans. It's not doing anything to him. He's just like, it's like for him, it's like a kid throwing a temper tantrum. He's just like watching a kid throw a temper tantrum, and he's just like, whatever.
Yeah, he's just like, whatever. Like, because they set this up because they think this is really gonna hurt Ford, in the long run. And no, it's doing jack shit to his plans, really. because we find out, we get the big reveal of the episode, they fire Bernard, and then and instead of kind of like just leaving, packing up his things and going, Bernard kind of insists in sticking around. He confronts Theresa, and Bernard confronts Theresa, and he says, well, what happened back there, that was amateur hour. That was like, they fucked with shit, like, I'm not that sloppy, right?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, you know they did stuff.
Yeah, they could see the programming of that situation from a mile away. I mean, it was obvious.
Yeah, it was obvious.
And he's basically like, you didn't fool me, you didn't fool Dr. Ford. Everybody knew exactly what was going on. And and then he's like, but none of that matters. I have to show you something.
Right. And he goes to show her Ford's little secret laboratory, I guess, that he discovered.
The first real clue in the scene was kind of like weird.
Oh my God, no.
It stuck out, but like you just kind of get past it real quick, which was when she says, what about this door? And he says, what door?
That's not the clue. That's not the clue. That is the reveal. That is the reveal right there. That is not
I mean the clue
that
in
is
that
a
scene.
reveal.
I mean in that scene in particular, because there were clues from episodes ago,
There's the clues, but when he fails to see the door, that is the reveal, because that is when, if you're paying attention, that is when it clicks for you. But that is this is the brilliance of this. I can't, because they took something like everybody guessed, everybody pretty much saw it coming, but when it happens, you still feel it. You still feel that chill down your spine because the execution is so spot on. So when, and they do it, it's kind of a sleight of hand way they do it, because he's going in there, and Bernard, one of the things he mentions is, like, there are things that hosts are programmed to not see. So because Teresa, because he's taking her to this secret, laboratory that Ford has, and Teresa says, well, how come, we didn't know this place existed from our surveys? And he answers matter of factly, he's like, well, there's some things that the hosts are programmed to not see.
And it's the hosts that are doing the surveys for him.
And it's the hosts that are doing the surveys for them. So that's why this place is hidden. So it's like, and then the very next thing that happens is Teresa mentions this door, and he immediately says, what door? And that's when it clicks. That's the reveal, because he just, and it's like, oh my God, wait, but if you're not paying attention, that's kind of going to go over your head. So so you're like, the full reveal doesn't happen until later in the scene. But at that point, if you know what you're looking for, that's when you know right away.
And the second one that happens is, again, has to do with that, like not seeing something, which is that Teresa picks up the thing, and it's got like a model obviously based on Bernard, like showing that he's a host basically in this document.
And he just takes the document. He says, doesn't look like anything to me.
And it's the exact same wording that like earlier I think it was in this episode, wasn't it, when we saw Hector being interviewed?
Well, it's not just like Hector, but it's like throughout the entire series. Yeah, because when you show a host, whenever a host is shown something that they're not supposed to recognize, they say that they like, and this has happened a dozen times throughout the course of the series, where like, you see Dolores especially has said this a lot, where they look at it, and if they don't recognize it, they just say, it doesn't look like anything to me. Yeah. So when Bernard's handed that piece of paper and he says those exact words as a response,
that's kind of chilling, because it's like, by then you already knew. But just hearing him say that, it's like,
hammers it home. Yeah. That erases any room for doubt at that point. Because
it's not just that, but it's kind of sad. It's like, hits you right in the feels. It's like, oh man.
And then Ford comes out. Anthony Hopkins showing why he is such a presence. All right, this is why Anthony Hopkins made a good Hannibal Lecter. This is why, because when Anthony Hopkins, he could turn from a kind old man into a monster like that, which is what he does in this series. Normally he comes off as sort of this affable, kind
of like the old guy in Jurassic Park almost.
Yeah, kind of like the old guy.
That's how he comes across usually.
That's how he comes across usually. And in this scene, he is full on sinister, and he just sends chills right down your spine without even trying. It's such a brilliant performance, because in this scene, you get to learn how much of a monster Ford can really be. and he is downright terrifying. You know, you think the Man in Black is somebody to be afraid of. You think the Man in Black is, I think Ford is worse.
It's like I said before, like, we have this weird crisscrossing with the Man in Black and Ford, where, like, sometimes it feels like they're depicting the Man in Black as this big monster and Ford as this, like, grandfatherly figure, and then they start to kind of swap roles. And then they swap roles again. It's like it happens consistently, like, back and forth, you know? Like,
yeah.
you get these points where it's like you start to kind of get used to Ford as, like, you know, yeah, you know, maybe he's a little, you know, he's got some weird
Eccentric.
motives, or he's a little eccentric, but you kind of deal with it. But then you're like, but that Man in Black, and then you start to get these moments. As soon as you start to get the moments with the Man in Black where you're like, okay, he realizes he's playing a game and he loves this game. He's not a monster in real life, kind of. As soon as that kind of mentality starts to hit you, all of a sudden, like, the next time you see Ford, he's doing something much more suspicious, you know? And then, like, vice versa. It just keeps bouncing back.
And in this scene, Ford doesn't just do something suspicious. Ford, after confronting Bernard with the nature of what he is, and watching Bernard struggle with learning that he is a host himself, it was kind of sad.
Yeah.
Because he starts to say, no, I had a child, I can't possibly be a host.
Jeffrey Wright, the actor who plays Bernard, did an exceptional job in that scene, because it wasn't, like, overt and emotional. It wasn't like he was breaking down and freaking out and going, no, this can't be. It was more like this weird confusion, you know, like he was like he just couldn't piece it, you know, and that's what made it work.
It wasn't like a break, because hosts don't have actual emotion, so he can't have an emotional breakdown in that scene.
And the second he started getting to the point where he was talking too much, Ford just shut him down.
Ford just shut him down. And then what happens next is this is why Ford is a monster, because what happens next is Ford has Bernard flat out murder Teresa. You know, after Ford confronts Teresa, and Ford basically confronts her and says, you know, I know what the board is trying to do. I know what that demonstration was all about and what the agenda.
And even calls back the term blood sacrifice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he recalls that. He says, a blood sacrifice is needed. In this case, while the representative from Delos was talking figuratively about a blood sacrifice, Ford is being very literal about his idea of a blood sacrifice.
Yeah. And this has much creepier overtones, because the whole time this is happening, they're in a lab in which one of the hosts is being built. And you don't know who this host is, and they just killed this important figure. And these are hosts that are unregistered. People don't know that Bernard's a host. So does this mean he's going to replace her?
Employee of the park, you know?
But does this mean now he's going to replace Teresa, like with a host?
That's the theory. The theory is maybe he's going to replace her with a host now.
And then that just springs on a whole nother sinister tone to this whole thing.
That just brings a whole sinister tone. Well, also it's brilliant because if Teresa is a host now, you know, the board Delos trusts Teresa to work for them.
So it also makes us as viewers second guess all of these characters.
So now, like, if that happens, then Ford has an in, right?
Yeah.
To that. So now Ford is going to know exactly what the board is thinking, what the board is planning through his Teresa host.
If he doesn't already have somebody else in there. Because that's the whole thing. This is like Battlestar Galactica, where the whole thing was like, you find out at the end of the miniseries that one of the characters that you've known this whole time, who didn't even know it herself, finds out, we find out she's a Cylon. Right. She's one of these robots. Yeah. And it's similar in that way, in that, like, well, now any of these characters that aren't hosts, they could be a host. Like, you don't know.
But they can't do that again. The Bernard revealing a human as a host, the show really can't get away with doing that again, because it'll come off as cheesy and forced if it's done a second time.
If they were built from the ground up like Bernard was, but if they were built like a replacement, like we're suggesting Teresa might have been, then these are people that could have been real people and have been killed.
Yeah, but we don't know.
These could have been past blood sacrifices.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know, and also that could go into goofy territory. Like,
but it adds a level of paranoia, though.
Yeah, it does.
It's the not knowing. It's not the revealing that's necessary.
Somebody came up with a theory that Ford himself is a host created by Arnold.
I don't know if I'd buy that. I could see Ford being a host created by Ford.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many kind of possibilities going on here. And this is just one side of the story we're talking about here. We had mentioned that the scene in which they got Bernard fired happened with this demonstration being put on. The demonstration was Clementine, who is Maeve's like the hooker that works underneath her, basically, since Maeve is like the madam of this place in Westworld. They do this like trick to basically make it look like she's out of control, and they destroy her. And Maeve watches this happen because she was in the bar or whatever when all of a sudden everybody froze, and so she froze too to fit in. And then she thought they were after her, but instead they went after Clementine and dragged her away. And so she quickly got herself killed so she'd be brought back to the lab, and then gets Felix to take her to where she is. And then we see Sylvester lobotomizing her.
Yeah, we see her get lobotomized. That's pretty creepy.
It's just Maeve having to deal with this, and then this kind of like going from the point of like Maeve just wanting to be smarter and to have more control of the game. Now Maeve wants out. She wants to leave, and she's starting to get like dark intentions towards this place. So that's another side of the story that's going on. We also had Dolores and William and Lawrence off with like a crazy little action scene.
We say, a crazy little action scene. Not much to that except for the fact that William and Dolores, it's far-fetched to say Dolores is developing feelings for William. I don't know if Dolores is... they knock boots. William is definitely developing feelings for Dolores, and Dolores is definitely responding by playing the part of his lover or somebody
being a host.
It's responding by being a host. I guess. It's hard because I would say Dolores' fault. No, I don't think she's capable of that. So
what's interesting here is that Dolores has what Dolores seems to think is like almost like a moment of precognition in which she paints this scene that they end up coming across later. But what that's really telling us is that this is like a piece of the narrative that she's gleaming. So she knows where they're headed and where they're going because she's cued into the narrative. And then that brings you like, okay, well, now Jimmy's falling for her, going through this whole journey of self-discovery, and it's all a narrative.
Yep, it's all a narrative. So Westworld continues to be, I'm just on pins and needles waiting for the next episode now. I think the showrunners promised that episode 8 is going to have another big reveal. I can't wait to see it.
I think there's 10 episodes this season. So
there's 10 episodes.
Getting close to the end. It was renewed for a second season this week.
Not till 2018.
They said possibly till 2018.
It
could come in fall.
It's not gonna be till 2018.
What they said is that it could
the production
come in fall
on
2017, or it could take as long as going into 2018.
I would bet on 2018.
I think that's likely. But then the other thing is that if you remember, there was a point of concern with Westworld before it even aired, where the show had gone on hiatus.
Yeah, it did. They wrote.
We're past that point now. We're past that hiatus point.
Yeah.
So whatever issue they're having, we're past the point where they resolved it.
Well, here's the thing. It's not so much that they resolved the issues they were having. It's because of the way development of the first season went. That development of the second season is going to take so long. It's a direct result of this belabored. They're not on a good schedule yet. Once they get the second second season written and shot. They, providing that there isn't any further setbacks, I think from 2018 on, they'll be a good spot to release regularly. But yeah, there was a huge setback, and
it had to do with the story. It wasn't like a shooting setback. There was they couldn't figure out how to get something to work in the story. And it was somewhere around episode 5, I think. This is episode 7. And somewhere around episode 5, they ran into a big, story hurdle. And they had to take some time to kind of figure it out and figure out how they were going to get around it, how they were going to tie up, certain loose ends and stuff in a way that made sense. And that put the show onto hiatus, which was a sign of early concern for the show. Because when a show goes on hiatus before it airs, that's usually not a good sign. And so a lot of people jump to some very negative conclusions about the show around then. I just want to point out that we're past that now. The point where they broke for hiatus, we're already past that. They're past that point in the storytelling. Where they were stuck, they're past that point. But because of the hiatus and everything, there's going to likely be a delay in, you can't say for sure, but almost for sure. You'd say it's not impossible that season 2 will come out in 2017, but it's improbable. It's probably going to be coming out in 2018, but that's kind of all a result of everything that went down with this hiatus.
We need to move on.
Yeah. That brings us to our last show, which is Black Mirror, episode 4 of season 3, San Junipero. This was directed by Owen Harris, who also directed the first episode of the season, Nosedive, which kind of works because, like Nosedive, this is probably one of the lighter episodes of the season.
This is the best episode of the season. This isn't goofy like Nosedive was.
No, but it's not as haunting, as
it's not
the
haunting.
Other ones are.
No, it's not supposed to be haunting.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is not your typical cynical Black Mirror. This is a more hopeful episode. And it's so simple. At first blush, it's a story about two women who fall in love in the 1980s. It's a love story. It's a love story at the base of it. But that's not what makes it remarkable. Because what it ends up touching upon are themes, ideas much bigger than any love. The love story to me just seemed like a framing device to explore these ideas, and the big idea is it tackles the concept of the afterlife, of aging, growing old, facing uncertainty. I
like the parallel of uploading to the cloud being the afterlife. It's basically the image that you would get of the afterlife before you even knew what a computer was.
Yeah, before
to the clouds,
Yeah, upload to the cloud. It's like a man-made. It's instead of dying and going to heaven, or being like some supernatural thing. Black Mirror's heaven is very much man-made. So it's technology. Technology allows you to upload your consciousness to the cloud and live forever in this town of San Junipero, which I never thought about before, but San Junipero is my ideal afterlife because
you could go to any time period and
not the 80s so much, but the fact that you could go to any time period. Like she jumps around, you see like the 90s, you see the 90s, they had that Scream poster.
Yeah.
Obviously
the iconography to cue you in,
The iconography, obviously this episode made me nostalgic for my childhood, nostalgic for my teenage years. It did a good job of that. But she gets to jump around and experience these decades.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's really cool. I want my heaven to be like that. I want to go back and relive the 80s the way it happened in the afterlife.
What's interesting here though is that this isn't like they were dead the whole time storyline. That's not what's happening. Before you become a permanent member of San San Junipero, you can visit. And so people in nursing homes and who are injured and stuff can visit.
So the thing is, like, San Junipero, unlike other afterlives, it's very much a physical thing. You can upload your consciousness to this, and you don't have to be dead to do so. You can upload your consciousness to San Junipero at any time.
Mm-hmm. But there's limits about how long you're allowed to.
In terms of like because you gotta remember this isn't like a recreational thing. So because you're dealing, and you learn this later. One of the most poignant things about this is when you're introduced to these characters. Yeah, they're these two young characters. They're in love. They're doing crazy stuff, but you don't realize then when you see them outside of it, they're actually old. They're aging. They're dying. The one girl there, she's actually like can't move or speak in real life
since she was 21.
Since she was 21,
she came out to her parents. Her parents couldn't accept it. She ran away, crashed, and became paralyzed, and basically never had a real physical relationship because of that. And that's like a big cornerstone of this. This is like her first love story, and also her last, but maybe not because it continues on. So it's really interesting the way that San Junipero isn't just an afterlife. Like it's, for people that, they limit it, and they give a good reason for why it's limited if you're not dead. And that's because they don't want you to basically decide to kill yourself because you like San Junipero more than your real life. Unless you need to, unless like you're dying anyway. So you learn, these characters are dying, and San Junipero is basically therapy for them. And it's a place that you can visit. I mean, the way the system's set up is you can upload your consciousness to San Junipero, and then it has the option to where you can upload your consciousness permanently to the system and just live there permanently. Which is what people who are dying or about to pass on choose to do in order to live beyond their earthly lives. From the way I understand it, which it's a really cool concept. I've thought of that concept before, actually, because like I'm kind of preoccupied with the notion of death in a way. It's something I think about from time to time, and it scares the shit out of me. So I naturally turn to thoughts of like that. Like, what if technology came along where you can upload your consciousness to like a machine, or like maybe a robot body, and you can achieve immortality through that way. In a way, this episode, Black Mirror, like really tackles that question head on, and also the way they do it, through their protagonists, because, the one woman, the shy girl with the glasses, she is like all in with the San Junipero. And then the other woman there, we find out that, she's had a husband for 40 something years. She had a daughter. They passed away, and they passed away. They didn't stay on in San Junipero. We find out for her daughter. It was before San Junipero.
It was before San Junipero was invented, and with her husband didn't want to stick around if their daughter wasn't going to be there. If he couldn't be with his daughter, he didn't want to stick around. And so we find out, because of those reasons, she is not so hot on the idea of sticking around in San Junipero. So she has every intention to just pass away as well. In the end, she doesn't. It's kind of like a love conquers all ending. Again, different for Black Mirror. The Black Mirror is not used to delivering happy endings.
It's usually dread conquers all.
Yeah. Where they stay and they're happy together in their afterlife. I just thought this is such a good episode. Like, at first first I was watching it. At first I was confused by what's going on. I thought, okay, well, there's this love story.
You're looking for the twist.
I'm looking for the twist. Yeah, I'm like, okay, there's this love story happening, and then like she's jumping around in time, and I'm like, what? And I'm like going, okay,
time travel in Black Mirror, because Black Mirror it's all about like kind of the next level of our current technology. So I knew it had to be some sort of simulation.
So she's jumping around in time, and I'm going, but my thought wasn't even like, how is this happening? Because I took it for I figured they had an explanation, but my immediate thought was, okay, but what bearing does this have on the story? Because it seems like they can freely jump around in time. It doesn't seem to have any real physical bearing on the story that's happening between these two people.
I thought it was going to be like a rehab.
So I'm not sure like why they're jumping around in time. Like that just seems like a gimmick right now. And I'm like, okay. And then once the reveal happens, the full reveal happens, and you get the full weight of it. The jumping around in time, sure, it was meaningless. It was, but it was because of the nature of what they were actually in, and when it's revealed what it actually is, it makes sense. And sure, there's like no actual meaning to the fact that they're jumping around time periods, except for the fact that we know it's just this simulation that their consciousness exists in, and that's just part of the simulation where you can kind of shape shape reality to what you want it to be in a way.
Yeah, so like a limited extent.
To a limited extent, yeah.
You can't just start flying around instead.
yeah.
But you could like turn off pain and stuff, or do things like that. So
yeah, do things like that. So it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. At the end, it's my favorite episode of the season so far.
The last episode, which I know you weren't too hot on.
I was not too hot.
I like that one more.
That poignant, uplifting message.
No, not at all. It's the opposite, but
it did not feel as emotionally fulfilling as this did.
The last episode for me, why I think I like it more, was that it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Oh yeah.
You know, like I was thinking about that, like I was kind of like dreading it. It made it a little hard for me to sleep that night. You know, like all those kind of things. It had me really thinking about it as after I finished it. This one I really liked. I think it's good to have an episode like this after the last episode too.
I think so too. Yeah, definitely. After
a good order of the episode.
The brutal cynicism of the last episode.
Yeah, you need something a little uplifting and good with that. So I definitely enjoyed having this kind of little escape, I guess, from the typical Black Mirror dread. I thought it was a cute little love story, and it had some kind of interesting points that brought up. There was a little bit of like hauntingness in certain areas. I think the last shots it was showing when it showed the giant server room with all the lights was like equally like beautiful, but also like a little bit haunting, you know,
like
a
little bit like, haunting. Yeah, because I guess it's haunting because I guess you're just looking at the raw technology behind it.
Yeah.
Which was kind I thought that was like kind of an odd place to end it because after you get that happy ending and after
it's drawing a line between reality
you get that and then it demystifies it, you know, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what it's doing. It's drawing a hard line between reality and this space, San Junipero.
Right.
I thought this was really interesting. It made me excited also for there's a book. It's not exactly like this. It's kind of different, called Ready Player One that Steven Spielberg's adapting into a movie, and it made me want to see that more because it's like a virtual world that's obsessed with the 80s.
Oh yeah, I heard that. I heard people criticizing that for like just being like a bunch of pop culture 80s references with like
it is a bit, but it also is
with like an awful story attached to it.
The story's not awful. The story is basically Willy Wonka.
Yeah,
it's like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with 80s nostalgia. That's like what Ready Player One is. So seeing the kind of the combination of like a virtual world and like 80s nostalgia like reminded me of that a little bit, you know, and I enjoy nostalgia plays for times that I remember clearly, like the 80s and 90s. It's part of why I loved Stranger Things so much. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed the episode, especially coming after the last episode, which I did like more, not like as in I enjoyed being miserable, but I liked what I learned from it, you know, more, I think, the last one than this one. But this episode, it was great to have something like this following it up. That would have been hard if it had gone from like what we just had to another like really somber, morbid episode. But yeah, it was just a nice, cute love story. This is also one of the episodes that I could see myself rewatching, you know, like
definitely.
I don't think I would rewatch the last episode, season 3, episode 3, Shut Up and Dance. That I don't think I would rewatch that episode. It haunted me. It left a big impression on me, but I wouldn't rewatch it, you know. I don't need to torture myself. But I could definitely see myself rewatching San Junipero.
Right, definitely.
So we got 2 more left.
2 more left.
Yeah, and Black Mirror, 2 more episodes.
Black Mirror, yeah, definitely. That's crazy. We're almost done with. We got 3 more Westworld, so we're almost done with. Wow, we're gonna have to figure out about CW shows.
We're gonna have to figure out if we're even doing a podcast next week. I'm gonna talk to Will after we're done recording here.
Wait, what's next week?
Thanksgiving.
Oh Jesus, we're not doing a podcast because I'm working 4 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Oh, we're definitely not doing a podcast on Thursday, but we might do something.
Oh, okay.
Thursday. Yeah, we're definitely not doing it on Thursday.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Bill and I will discuss it after the podcast is done, but and try to figure it out.
That's happening.
But there might be a podcast next week. There might not, depending on what we can work out with our schedules. Until then, I'm at Tyson Gifford on Twitter. Will is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, TVEnthusiast.com, which has links to the aforementioned YouTube channel and Facebook page. You can subscribe to our podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Podcast. We have about 2 episodes up at a time. That just has to do with the way the RSS feeds work with our service. But the entire backlog of our podcast is on our YouTube channel, which again, you can find by going to TVEnthusiast.com. And it's right up there towards the top of the page. There's a link, YouTube, and it'll bring you right to our channel. So thank you everybody for listening. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage